Welcome back to The Chosen Life. I'm your host, The Chosen Lawyer, and you have asked for him. We got him. One of the stars of David and David on Real Estate Podcast, Mr. David Gorski. David, welcome to The Chosen Life.
It's great to be here, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me today.
I apologize you haven't been here sooner, but we had to get the set just right as well. You somehow were able to match up the jacket to the set perfectly. Well done on that.
Thank you, sir.
You actually looks like you perfectly customized, and you're fitting right in, man. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks, Jonathan. I love the setup that you guys have here. It's a first-class setup, and it's good to be here.
Thank you, thank you. Now we have known each other now, coming up, gotta be now easily 10 years, I think. It's been quite a while, quite a ride together. And you're used to, on your podcast, talking about the real estate world and what's happening there, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to touch a little bit upon that at some point today. But I wanted to bring out the real David Gorski, the one I know, my friend, my brother, and how you and I bonded. This is called The Chosen Life for a reason. And if there's one person I know lives a chosen life, it's David Gorski, because you and I share a lot of common interests together.
We actually do. There's a lot of commonalities, and I think people are going to get to know that a little bit more as we go through the podcast together today.
We first got to know each other through the luncheons, dinners over at your brokerage, Sutton Summit, right? And when we were meeting originally, I had just started at Kormans with David and Jerry. You were still a realtor at the time before running a brokerage. And we got to know each other, and there's so many agents there. The person I spent the most time speaking with was always you, David, and we bonded very closely because it was always a different subject matter, but we just instantly started gleaming to one another. And I thought to myself when I met him, isn't it good stuff? I like this guy. Do you recall your first time meeting me and what your first impression was?
I do, absolutely. So we met at Blair Armstrong's birthday party, my former business partners, and we probably talked for about 40 minutes about watches. And it was an intriguing conversation, partly just because of the passion you had about the watch that you were wearing. I can't recall what watch it was, but you instantly recognized one of the watches that I had on, and it was a great conversation starter. And that took us through most of the evening. It was a great conversation.
And that's a really great segue into topic number one, which is watches. Now, at the time, did I tell you how I got into watches and why I love watches out of curiosity?
I'm sure that conversation did come up. I can't recall. It was.
It's been a few years now.
It's been a few years now,
Yeah.
But I think any guy that gets into watches for a number of different reasons. A lot of them are personal, but for in my opinion, I think having a watch is a piece of jewelry that a guy can have. And you look at women, and women have necklaces and earrings and rings and piercings, and I think we're a little bit more limited in what we can have. So I think having a really nice watch should be part of everybody's wardrobe.
I would say in any world, when a woman makes an appearance, they tend to look at her shoes and they look at her bag. For a man, they'll look at his shoes, maybe the belt, they're going to look at the watch. That's how it is.
100%. And it's a statement piece, right?
My pathway, my gateway to it, my enabler was my older brother. That's where it came to me for watches. I was in grade 10 at the time. He's 17 years older than me. And he's telling me, you're in high school now. You need to have a good watch. That's how it has to be. And so he went with me to the mall. He started showing me different watches, and then until I picked out the piece which I liked, which was a two-tone tag at the time. Tag is very often the first starting point for a lot of men, I would say, maybe women as well, and starting to work up the food chain, so to speak. So that's where he's the one who got me started on it. He's the one who's taking me to the stores and figuring everything out. And then, the illness began, and the illness ran rampantly, and it never stopped. I actually sat one day and started making a list of all the different timepieces I'd owned over the years and tried to figure out the timelines. And it's been a number of them for certain. But it started off originally with tag. You started off with the quartz tag, work your way up to the automatic tag, and then the first Rolex date just. Getting that first Rollie on my arm, and I didn't just get a regular Rollie. We went shopping around all the different pawn shops in downtown Toronto, Canada. until one of the people put together a Frankenstein version. So we like this bracelet and this dial and this bezel, and he Frankensteined a watch together. So my first Rolly was a Frankenstein model. And this all started from grade 10. I was whatever I was, 14, 15 years old, and it began and it's stormed ever since. For yourself, do you remember when you first got introduced to watches and what began for you?
I do. So before I got into real estate, I used to do a lot of buying and selling on eBay actually from when I was 17 years old. And I remember my first watch was a Movado, and it was an automatic movement. And I remember receiving the watch in the mail and unpackaging it and taking it out of its packaging and looking at the back, and had a transparent case back. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And I absolutely fell in love with it, and I think a watch is like an art form. It sits on your wrist, you interact with it multiple times a day, you look at it, and it's a part of you. And I think appreciating that art form that's on your wrist is so important, and makes such a big difference to how you feel and how you interact with it, and what that timepiece means to you.
Do you still have that Movado?
I do.
Excellent. That's one of the things I can tell you that I learned along the way. At the time, I was only a one watch guy. So every time I would get a watch, I would sell the other watch. I would give anything to have my first watches back, did not keep them. Also, when you're younger, there could be limited funds. And so every time you want to upgrade, the other watch has to go. So you did keep it. And how far along, like when did the first Rolly hit?
So I've always wanted a Rolex ever since I was a little boy, and it was an engagement present from me to me. And when I got engaged, I got myself a Rolex, and just absolutely love it. And it's such a hard watch to replace because it's such a staple, right? And it doesn't have the clear case back as a solid case back, so you can't really appreciate the movement as much as you could on some of the other timepieces. But you really appreciate the construction of it, and the art form of the watch as well. And I love wearing it to the point that it's been so hard to replace it with anything else. And I find myself wearing the Rolex Submariner with the date that I have 99.5% of the time.
Is that so? That engagement gift is the one sitting on your wrist right now?
It is, yes.
So that was the one you were wearing when you and I first met.
Correct.
And it's funny because you could have been wearing a potato sack for all I care. All I saw was the Rolly on your wrist. And I said, this man has good taste. This is a guy I got to talk to. And I've had this discussion with professionals so often. And people that seemingly are very successful, do well for themselves, and they have this mental block, David. They're saying to themselves, I cannot go and spend $5,000. I cannot spend $10,000 on a watch. It doesn't make sense to me. One of the things I say to them as far as me being an enabler, saying to them is like this: that watch is not going to cost you money. That watch is going to make you money. You're sitting in a meeting with somebody and you're trying to list a $2 million, $3 million, $4 million house as a realtor. I see the watch on your wrist. I say to myself, that's a person of style. It's a person that does well for themselves. I believe in them. I want to work with them. And so many people think, oh, if I wear an expensive watch, they're going to feel like I'm ripping them off, and they're going to get scared of me. And one of the things I always preach is never, ever be ashamed of success. Don't try to hide it. Be confident. You don't have to be cocky about it, but be confident in who you are. When you wear that watch, it is the most obvious thing on your wrist. It was custom made for you, and that's where it's going to be, and that's who you are. And I think that helps portray in the image that of who you really are at the end, in the essence.
Yeah, and I think a watch can be a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think the most important thing is, what is it to you? What does it mean to you? And Rolex has this commercial, and every single time I see it, I really understand what they're trying to portray. And I think the commercial, I'm paraphrasing, but it goes something like a crown for every occasion, right? And if you really think about that, and you think back to, why you bought your Rolex or why you bought your first watch, most likely something big has happened to you in your life that you want to remember. You probably came into good fortunes, right? Maybe you sold a piece of real estate. Maybe you got some inheritance. Maybe you made a big business deal. Maybe your business did really well. But you usually treat yourself in a positive light frame, right? When you get yourself one of these watches. So wearing it and being able to look at it and being able to appreciate it, reminds you of the good times and, lets you enjoy that success every day as you interact with your timepiece.
I remember picking up a Rolex sports model, not that long ago, relatively, but especially with where Rolex has gone and the waiting list. And you think, okay, this is never going to happen. And then one day you get that phone call and you go to the store and people are looking at the barons of what's in the showcase because there's nothing there really. Like literally everything's on a waiting list now. They go to the back, they pull out the watch, they open up the box, and people, their eyes just light up like Christmas trees. And they're like, you're the chosen one. You got to walk away with this watch today. And you put it on your wrist and they size it for you. It's the best feeling. And you know what? They're smart marketers that way.
They really are. And now in the world of luxury goods, I mean, every single thing you buy, you have to go through this waiting list approach, right? Like go and try to buy a Ferrari. Like good luck to you. Like there's a 4-year waiting list. You got to buy this model, you got to buy this model, you got to buy this model, and maybe they're going to give you, the model that you actually want. But this is how they sell these luxury goods. It's no longer about money or class style. It's almost you need an invitation, right? And it's extremely smart marketing.
I remember when I started with watches, and this is back, now we're like easily 30 years ago. And until not that long ago, you could go to almost any Rolex dealer. You could buy almost any model you wanted, no tax, 5%, 10%, 15% off, whatever it was. It was just a given. That's the system. And there was always a nice full showcase. You could buy as many gold ones as you wanted. You could buy as many platinum as you wanted. There was never going to be a question of it. The green dial submariner, the Hulk. As many as you want all day long because everybody wants the black one. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. Then things all of a sudden began to change and the system began, you go on the waiting list, you pay full price plus tax, and you say, thank you for the opportunity to pay full price. That's great, great, great marketing. Wow.
Yeah, boy, have the times changed. And, I think people are in a time where they're just making so much more money. And a lot of it is attributed to real estate, right? So it's great, but I'll tell you a story. I was in Thailand and I was in a small little plane flying from one island to another island. I had my Rolex and a guy in the back, brushed my shoulder and pointed to his watch, and he had exactly the same watch I had, except it was all blue.
Oh.
Do you know what the blue dial signifies?
The Smurf?
No, it's 24 karat gold or 18 karat gold.
The gold,
the white gold.
The white
right?
gold, yes.
So, that was extremely impressive. And, I asked him, I said, we got into conversation. He said that he actually lives in Thailand. And I said, wow, you're wearing, a white gold Rolex on your wrist. You're not afraid of going. He's like, no, honestly, it's the safest place. I feel very safe. Never felt endangered with my Rolex on my wrist. It's fully insured. But it was just such a beautiful timepiece.
There's a couple of episodes. Previously, I've had a guy on by the name of RJ. I call him his name is Superdoc on Instagram. And he's a watch aficionado. And I met him through a watch collecting website. And he lives out in the Niagara area. So when we made our transaction, I went to go pick up the watch. He invited me into his home. And he went to get one of the boxes. And he goes to get one of the boxes, goes to grab something else. And he leaves me alone with the watch box. And there's multiple watches in this thing. And it's more than people's homes, quite likely, as far as the equity in it. And that was the kind of trust and everything. We knew each other through the site. But, and everything in life, there's levels,
100%.
And here's one person struggling, thinking of what is my grail. One person's grail is his beater. That's the levels that they're at. And I remember he had just picked up a piece and we're looking at it together, and it's a President Day-Date Rolex.
Beautiful.
But it's got the nice ice blue dial, which can only mean one thing.
Platinum.
Now, it's funny because now in the platinum, they now change that they're not just a regular smooth bezel, they now offer it in the fluted bezel, the rigid bezel.
Right.
So he's got the smooth bezel. So now do we go smooth bezel, fluted bezel? If there's something called first world problems,
First world problems,
those are
100%.
it.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I mean, there are different levels, and that goes to everything in life, right? And one of the things I'm going to challenge the listeners is whatever level you think you're at, there's always 10 levels above you, right? So don't be afraid to change levels, right? And that requires a different way of thinking, a different way of approaching the situation, thinking outside the box and challenging the status quo around you. And there are levels. There's levels to car collecting, watching. There's different levels in business as well, right? And none of the levels are not attainable. They're all attainable. You just have to set out a goal, and the sky's the limit.
Part of the disease with watches, though, right now, is it has to be Rolex, AP, or Patek for people. That's what the rappers are saying. That's what the influencers are wearing. And there are a lot of other watch brands out there. There's
are.
so many. And for a lot of us starting off, like I started off with a Tag, you started off with a Movado. There's Omega, which is nothing to sneeze at. There's $50,000 plus dollar
50,000.
Omegas
Yep.
easily. There's Breitling. So, and not only that, but if you start to get to know the watch community, there's collecting websites, and there's some watches that the second you put on your wrist and you leave that store, it's depreciated by half easily. Rolex, everybody thinks you buying watches, they're all going to make money. That's kind of a myth. That's more of a recent phenomenon. But a lot of the watches, if you know how to buy them, that's what I used to do as I learned it through my brother, is you find, he goes to me, why would you pay $10,000 for a $10,000 watch? You go pay $10,000 for a $20,000 watch, and guess what? You can wear it and rent it all day long for free because you're always going to get back your $10,000. That made a lot of sense to me. And there's still a lot of brands that are like that. Not everything shot up like crazy. So somebody that can understand, you know what, I'm getting into watches. Not everybody has to have a Rolly, a Patek, and an AP. Go look up IWC. There's a lot of beautiful brands out there. This one here is a Glasuda. This is something from Germany. And only people know this one is the watch community, essentially. But I loved it. But whoever bought it, the second they wore it off the wrist, it depreciated by half. And then I go to buy it, and I'm renting it for free. But I love it, so it's there. I get a custom strap. I'm happy with it. And that's one of the things that really got into when Panerai started getting very popular all of a sudden. People are buying multiple straps for their watches. It's like they have a new watch every single day.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, and you can go as crazy as you want with your collection, but ultimately, your first watch is special. Give it a lot of thought, but I would encourage everybody listening to go out there and take a look at what's out there and what makes sense for you.
I can't imagine seeing David Gorski not with the sub. So that being said, David, with looking ahead, is there a grail for David Gorski? Is there a future watcher you're looking at saying, you know what, if the circumstances are right or the price is right, is there anything you have your eye on right now?
There is.
Are you willing to share it?
Of course.
Please.
I would love to get into a Patek.
Yes.
Patek Philippe, perpetual calendar. Yeah, it's definitely my holy grail of watches. And the reason I'm hesitating with that style of a watch is because they're very delicate, right? They require extreme care, both when you wear it and in terms of maintenance as well. A Patek Philippe, a perpetual calendar watch, it takes them, I think, 4 years to actually assemble this watch in the factory. Wow. Like the amount of skill and precision that goes into a watch like that is unimaginable. But a perpetual calendar doesn't have to be wound for, I think, like 60 years, right? So as long as you wear it on your wrist, it knows the difference between a leap year, a regular year. It knows which month has 30 days, which month has 31 days. You never have to set that watch ever in your life.
I've heard, though, that if you overset it, then to get it set back, you actually have to get it sent back to the factory for some of the brands. So.
I'm not sure. Maybe. Yes. I mean, it would make sense to me. There's a lot of different functionalities, right? Like, I mean, that watch knows whether, it's nighttime, daytime, whether, what the date is, whether we're in a leap year or not in a leap year, what month it is, what date of the month. Like, I mean, and it's all 100% manual, which kind of boggles your mind, right? The fact that there's so many complications that the watch can keep track of all that. But the reason I'm still kind of hesitating is because it's such a fragile timepiece that I feel like this is a tank. I can go play tennis in this. I can scuba dive in this. I can hit the car door with it. And yes, it pains me, but I've had it on my wrist for 7 years now, and I feel like it's still looks like the day I bought it. A Patek would not be that forgiving.
And some watches don't age so gracefully. But if I go buy a sub from 30 years ago and people look at us from the corner of their eye, it's not that far off. That's one of the great things. That's why Rolex is timeless. The
Yeah.
styles never go out.
And in fact, the Submariner from 30 years ago is probably going to be worth more than my watch. And they're highly collectible and highly sought after and very rare. And people really want them.
Which is insanity in some ways because yours has the ceramic, it has a stronger steel casing, constructed in a much different manner. When you look at the watches from like the 70s, the bracelets, even when they're good shape, are still very flimsy. They
Yeah.
were much differently done. But like you're saying, if you can find one, especially if you have the papers, the grail of the papers, they're very, very highly sought after.
Yeah, and if there's any complications in it, like if it's a Tiffany edition or anything like that, I mean it's the value goes up so exponentially, right? But that's the fun part of collecting watches is looking for those rare timepieces, and if you ever get one and you add it to your collection, what a great thing to pass on to your kids and to other generations, right?
Especially when it's the daily, like when you actually know this is, and that's one of the things that RJ was talking about. Let's say he owns, I don't know, 200 watches. He gives 150 of them to his kids. His kids never saw him wear it once. That's not my dad's watch. That's a
Right.
collectible. When you see the one that dad actually wore and there's dad's sweat marks and everything, that's a different story. So,
Well, you
or
hope
mom.
it has different meaning,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But time will tell what the younger generation attributes value to. But it has special meaning. It has special meaning to you that you wore it for all those years, right?
Now, talking about meaning and what the younger generation is doing, a good segue into topic number 2 is the influencers out there. What they love doing with their watches, I know you've seen this before, is they go into their cars and you got the steering wheel with the emblem and you take a shot of the emblem with the watch and it goes together. So, cars. What goes really well with nice watches? Nice cars. I only learned this today, actually, because I'm a huge car fan as well. But I learned that David Gorski loves cars as well.
I do, yeah. I mean, what boy doesn't, right?
So now you said that you loved cars since your childhood. Did somebody get you into it, or is it just simply you were a young boy, saw cars driving by, and you're like, man, I gotta have me those?
I was always a car buff. I love driving. For me, it's the thrill of the drive. Like I'm a huge car enthusiast when it comes to driving the cars. I'm pretty spoiled. I'm not gonna lie. I drive a Tesla, and I have a 911 in my garage, which hasn't had a lot of use since I got my Tesla 4 years ago. But I love cars and I love driving them.
That's where we start getting into Rolex, Patek AP. Now we're talking Porsche, Lambo, Ferrari. We start getting into the holy trinities, so to
Yep.
speak. I was not aware, and I've heard that from a lot of people that have sports cars. Once they got the Tesla, they seem to always gravitate to the Tesla.
Yeah, it's the Tesla is a special car. Like they just really nailed the driving experience. It's phenomenal. It's comfortable. It's lightning quick. Like there's no car on the road that can even match up to me closely remotely. Like you smoke Lambos on a regular basis, right? And you do it with ease, and it's with such precision, so much fun. They're just a fun car to drive, right? So when I got my Tesla, unfortunately, I haven't been driving the 911 a lot at all, and I find myself just always going for the keys to a Tesla. It's kind of crazy.
Now, for somebody who grew up, I guess, loving cars, supercars, was there ever hesitation saying, I love the startup, I love the vroom vroom, and the whole feeling of the gas, oil, and just the machinery behind it? Did you feel that you were kind of cheating on your supercar by going to a Tesla?
I read so many forums before I bought the Tesla, and,
Yeah.
and people talk about this a lot. And a lot of 911 owners become Tesla owners. It's all in the forums. I don't know why that is, and this problem is pretty dominant in the industry. Like a lot of 911 owners just fall in love with their Tesla so much that they end up just not paying attention as much to their 911 anymore. Yeah, I miss the sound, and right, but then there's so much other things happening, and the sound is different, right?
Yes.
Like it's kind of like sitting in a jet engine, and when you press that pedal in, and you have 700 horsepowers going through all four wheels, it's a crazy experience. That's hard to describe unless you drive one of these cars and see how it performs on an everyday basis.
I sat in the back of a Tesla once. It felt like I was sitting in the back of an app. Like you got this giant iPad and you're just working on the iPad, and it just like was blowing my mind. And you see it, it's just such a well-designed car, so much thought put into it. I'm thinking, how is not everybody in this car? Like it makes every other car seem so outdated. But I'm a big muscle car fan, and they just announced the Dodge Challenger, Charger. They're going to be going away. There'll be no more Hemi engines. It's all going to be electric. I understand it, and I understand for the earth and what they're saying, even though there's arguments to be made as far as the battery and whether that's earth friendly or not. But I love the feeling of those muscle cars and those big engines, and I'm going to really miss them.
No, I mean, I completely agree. My holy grail in the car section is the Ferrari 458. It's a naturally aspirated V8 engine, the last of its kind in the Ferrari super world. They're going with this hybrid gas and electric, right? But I love the 458 because it just represents the last of the naturally aspirated supercars, and the value of those cars over the last 12 months, they doubled in value. When I was looking at them pre-COVID, and you could pick a really nice Ferrari 458 for $250,000
Canadian dollars.
Canadian. Now they're at $400,000. Yeah. $400,000. Like, but it shows you that people appreciate the older, the naturally aspirated, that engine roar. There is something to say about it. I just think that as a regular car, if you're stuck on our Toronto roads, stuck in traffic, going from appointment to appointment to appointment, having the autopilot, having the car do so many functions for you, integrate with your calendar. The new ones will even pick you up from where you are remotely. Like it's mind-boggling technology, and honestly, the drive is second to none. That's hard to beat.
In certain categories, I say that people are always one or the other. So in watches, you're either a Patek or an AP. You're not both. I would take a Patek as well. In cars, it's either going to be Ferrari or Lambo. I would choose a Ferrari as well. In music, it's Beatles or Stones,
Absolutely.
Which one would you choose?
In terms of the cars?
No, Beatles or Stones, if you had to choose in music.
I think I would choose Beatles.
I'm a Stones. So we're 2 out of 3 to say. But from the look of it from the car, I do appreciate Lambos, but there's just something so special about the Ferrari. Can't explain it. But it blows my mind that, I have a couple friends, one that bought a Ferrari, one bought a Lambo. The Ferrari guy came there, does very well-to-do executive, and he got put on the list. They had to pre-approve him. They're not just going to sell Ferraris to anybody. Yep. And they're like, okay, you like this model? Then guess what? You're going to buy this California here, and we'll talk to you about that model one day. The other guy said, screw this. I'm going to buy a Lambo, and they'd sell him any Lambo he wanted, so he chose a Lambo. And he's doing okay. They're both doing okay at the end of the day. But you were talking about waiting lists. I think it's very similar with Hermes bags. You can't just be put on the list. They also have to prove who you are. And there were some cars, I know with the Ford GT, they were saying you have to sign a contract so you're not going to sell it for X amount of time. I think with some of the Pateks or APs, or maybe both, that you don't get your papers right away, so you can't flip it with the papers. They're caught on to this stuff. They're aware of the gray market. And it's amazing. The more money you spend on some of the luxury goods, the more money you could actually make and flip on it.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy, but there's a market for it, and clearly people are benefiting from it, right? But I think the moral of the story here is that if you hang on to it over a long time, it will appreciate in value, and you're going to get so much more enjoyment out of it, right? So, part of the things I regret in my life is flipping some properties I probably shouldn't have, right? It's getting rid of some things I probably shouldn't have, and with time and with inflation and with the way things are going, had I kept some of those things, I would have been in a much better position.
1,000%. I could tell you on watches, when I go back and look at the list, if I had kept every single watch, I would have been way better off. Absolutely. And you being in the real estate industry, when you come to meet a client, either you drive them or you meet them there, either you show up on the line 11 or Tesla, do you get always a common reaction, do you find?
No, I don't. I don't really pay attention to that stuff. I tend to just be me and be authentic, and I don't let stuff like that distract me at all, right? And I think when you're confident and you always act in the client's best interest, that kind of speaks a lot louder than what you're wearing or what you show up in. But it does add to the confidence and to the conversation, and it gets you aligned with the client. Sometimes if they're a car buff, and I get so many questions on my Tesla all the time, right? Like all the time. How does it feel? Gas anxiety, battery anxiety, and I get people asking me questions. So it's kind of fun to be able to educate people and tell them what my experience have been and how much I've enjoyed the car. I'm a huge Elon Musk supporter. Love what he's doing with all the projects that he's undertaken. And I think he's going to help humanity in a big way moving forward.
And look, at the end of the day, there's some superficiality to it, and people make a conscientious choice as far as where they want to be in life. All I tell them is this: if you want to roll with the big boys and big girls, so to speak, and you pull up to an event, and one's driving a Bentley and one's driving a Lambo, and you pull up, let's say, in some sort of hybrid that lower end, you feel like you're saving the earth, that's fine. But, is that where you want to be at? You got to ask yourself. And as a professional, again, I think, and especially we deal with a lot of real estate professionals in our industry and with clients, image has a lot to do with it. And I think people have to be very conscientious of that. What is your value system? What are you good with? And what image do you want to portray? And one thing I tell people, you may agree or disagree, but every single thing goes into it. Whether you decide to shave your beard, be smooth, what do you want to do? Are you groomed? Are you not? Whether you get a haircut, how's your hair styled? What's the clothes that you wear? What watch do you put on? What shoes do you put on? What car you drive? Every single thing. People don't know you yet. They make an automatic impression based on that. What kind of impression do you want to make? And especially if you're in a sales business, first impressions are often everything. If they've developed that first impression of you, you may not even get a chance to open your mouth at that point. So I tell people, never forget that. And very often they have to see you time and time again to get embedded into the brain. So if they see you consistently at a certain event and you're always looking good and you're looking fresh, you're speaking confidently, you drive a nice car, there's a certain impression of depending on what your target audience is. So that's where, to me, it comes back to, I remember the one friend I enabled them with the Rolex, and it's somebody that's very, price conscious, I would say. I like to say cheap. But I said, that watch is not going to cost you money. It's going to make you money. He's been to so many events where he sat with somebody in a box or on the floors. The other person had on a Rollie. He had on his Rollie. And guess what? That watch has gone up by at least 50% since he got it. So things to think about.
Yeah, my watch has gone up more than 50%. Crazy when you think about it. Because, we're talking about large sums of money here, right? But, I feel like trends are changing in business, and I think it's more important to be yourself and be authentic to yourself than anything else. So, that watch that you wear or that car that you drive, it has to speak to you, right? And listen, my Tesla was another one of those moments in my life that I treated myself. So I paid off my business when I bought my Tesla. Like completely paid it off, where I owed no money in the business that I own. And to me, the first thing I did is I bought myself a Tesla. I paid cash for it. And that was, every single time I get into my car, and I had to work for it too. Like I had a 3-year plan to buy my Tesla, and I knew I'm going to get a Tesla. Every single time I walked by a Tesla store in the mall, I went in. Man, those salespeople probably hated me because I was in there all the time drooling.
I call them time wasters.
Drooling over these cars. But I had a goal, and my goal was to pay off my business loan. And the minute I paid off my business loan, I went ahead and bought myself a Tesla. The crazy part about buying myself a Tesla for cash was I had an argument with my ex-wife at the time, and I'll never forget this. I said to her, instead of spending this money in a car, I'm gonna buy Tesla shares for exactly the cost of my car, and I'm gonna finance my car. Well, we didn't speak for 3 weeks. And I didn't do it. I didn't follow my instinct. I didn't follow that advice. But But had I bought Tesla shares instead of spending that money, those shares would have been worth over $1.4 million today.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And there's another story I want to share about my Porsche. So, I bought my Porsche used. It's 2006. I bought it, I think, 11 years ago. I've had it for quite some time now, and I didn't pay much for it. But I remember that same day, one of my clients wanted to buy a townhouse in Oakville, and I took him to a builder. They weren't cooperating with agents, so I was there more in an advisory situation. But still, I told him which lot to look at and what upgrades to take, what model to buy. And I remember he put down exactly the cost of my Porsche 911 on a brand new townhouse.
And I'm very scared to ask what that townhouse went up by.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it probably did, a 5x. I mean, my Porsche went up 50% in value too,
Yes.
but nowhere near what that piece of real estate went up, right? So, you got to be careful in some of the decisions you make financially and some of the situations you put yourself in. And again, I think I would challenge all the viewers to be authentic and do it for themselves.
And that segues us to a third spot, because being authentic and true to yourself, it was either our second or third conversation. We're enjoying life as far as talking about watches. We talked about cars now as well that we got to bond over. It's amazing, as men, how we gravitate to one another the same way women will, or, both genders come together. But, there's two places on the sports field where you're often going to bond in business. And it's either going to be on the tennis court or the golf course. And, back in my day, so to speak, because I believe I'm much older than you, is the tennis was the game back in the 80s, and it's still popular to this day, but golf with Tiger Woods and everything really took off. You and I bonded over tennis, out of all things, and didn't realize, but David is a very big tennis aficionado.
Huge tennis fan, like crazy.
Yeah, I love the sport. I fell in love with it from a very young age, playing it daily from a very young age for many, many years. Just love everything about it. And when you got two watch fans and then tennis, it's over. Like, it's just over.
The conversation is easy from that point forward.
So who brought you into tennis, David?
So I used to actually play table tennis competitively.
It's called ping pong, bro.
No, table tennis. You never call it ping pong. But my parents rented an apartment in Mississauga, and there was a table tennis downstairs. And I remember going swimming. I was very young. I think I was like 8 years old at this point, and I just heard this pop, 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 pop. And I would open the door and put my hand in there, and I saw like this guy just going crazy with the ball and practicing, and the consistency and keeping the ball on the table is just mind-boggling. So, this happened about 10 times where I heard, and they would practice every night. So every night as I'm going swimming and I'm going to enjoy the common amenities in the building, they're practicing, and I can hear the ball and I can hear that sound off the table. So one day I got the confidence and I walked into the room and I said, "Can I play with you guys?" Right? And that started probably like a 12-year table tennis addiction. Right, so I played competitively. I played on the team. I got pretty good, and then I injured my shoulder, and it got to the point where
Injured playing table tennis. Okay.
Yeah, I got injured, and to the point where holding a table tennis racket and making that move on the back end, still to this day, I visualize the pain that it causes me in my shoulder.
What did you do to injure the shoulder? Was it a movement, or did you bang against the table, or what happened?
After thousands and thousands and thousands of hours at a table tennis table, it just the repetition of the movement, right? Wow. That got me injured. So I live in that same building, and I always play tennis a little bit here and there, and I picked up a tennis racket instead, probably when I was about 16, 17. And little did I know, the spin theory behind playing table tennis made me a very good tennis player, right? To the point where I could control the ball unlike any other tennis player out there. Like I just found out it was easy for me to put spin and to, place the ball and to play completely differently from other tennis players out there. So and there was no pain. There was no pain when I was playing. So I found myself playing a lot of tennis and fell in love with Nadal. Like, I'm completely enamored by the guy, like his fighting spirit, the fact that he never says no and fights for every single point like it's the end of his life. And I followed him from a very, very early point in his career. I remember the first match he was playing was with Andre Agassi in Montreal. And he was like a 16-year-old kid. Like, I mean, like he had baby hair on his face, right?
Yeah.
And boy, was he bullying Agassi around. Like, he just bullied him around. And I'm like, who is this kid? And I was a big fan of Agassi at the point. So I was like, I was a little upset at this point. I'm like, who is this kid, like, pushing Andre Agassi? And I think Agassi actually lost that match. And I found myself next time I turned on and I tuned into a tennis tournament, and I saw Nadal's name. I'm like, I'm going to see how else he's playing with other players and see how else he's competing. Who else is he going to give a hard time to? And every single match I tuned into, he would win. And players were shocked. And I remember the first time he played Federer, like, what a match. I think it was like a 4-set match. Federer took a set off of him, but Nadal actually ended up beating him. And from that point onward, I was hooked. It was Agassi and Nadal. And then, of course, Agassi retired. And to this day, I was watching Nadal play Tiafoe at the U.S. Open just last night. And, what a great sportsman and never die attitude and go after every single point and very humble and just a great role model for the sport and for everybody else, I think.
I'm very scared now to tell you who my favorite tennis player is.
Nadal?
Nope. Nick Kyrgios.
Oh my God.
I love watching the guy, and I think he's very heavily misunderstood. That's one of those guys that I'm going to say $1 million body and 10-cent brain. But man, if his head was into the game, he would be the top guy. And I just love the rawness of it. When he's on, I don't think anybody can touch him. I'm like, it kind of perplexes me, I think, in that sense. Nadal, Federer, you got to hats off to them. I grew up in the era also of Agassi, Lendl, Becker, McEnroe, Connors. And one of the things my beefs with tennis, because I love tennis, is I think the equipment is too good now. Like, it's so hard to compare the generations, because how do you compare the guys with the wooden rackets to what they're using now?
You can't.
Like, most of those guys, when they serve, you can't touch it. It's impossible. If Federer serves to you, I don't think you'll be able to do one hit off of it. Maybe blindly. You have to start hitting the second he's jumping up. That's how fast he is.
Yeah.
And the equipment is almost too good. I wish they'd almost scale it back and go back to wood or something a little more. But then it's more about the playmanship, because, man, the equipment has really taken over. Mm-hmm. And, like, they're serving, 150 miles per hour? It's nuts out there.
They actually did that in table tennis. So about 5 years ago, what they did is they changed the size of the ball. They made it heavier and bigger so that it made the sport more playable, right? So they can get into longer rallies. So they, yes. Right? Because nobody wants to go and see a game where, like, two players blow each other off the court and the bigger server wins. Like, to me, that's not interesting. What's interesting is, the strategy, the rallying, the athleticism of actually, two styles matching up against each other and them actually competing on styles more so than just the serve.
Did you hold the racket that style where it's like a V? Like, 'cause I've seen, like, when they have, like, for example, from China, like, the way they're holding it almost like chopsticks.
Yeah, it's called the pen holder grip.
That is nuts. I've tried. I can't do it.
No.
And man, they're like standing like 100 feet apart because they're just so quick. It's so impressive to watch.
Yeah, it's a fun sport. People. I wish more people got into table tennis, because I think it's a great sport, great discipline, great hand-eye coordination. It's one of those sports that you can play well into your later years in your life as well, which is great. And I'm a big fan of sports like that. I think we should. Table tennis needs more attention in Canada.
David, more points in common, because I had my group of friends from grade 1. And I was the one that they always conglomerated at my house because I had the tennis court just down the street, and I'm the one with the table tennis at my house
Cool.
down in the basement.
Yep.
We had it all set up, and we just had tournaments. And every time somebody would walk in, the first thing they would say right away, "I got next game." That's all it was. We never played doubles. We just had constant tournaments. Eventually, started playing for money on those, and I love the sport as well. I think it's fantastic. I appreciate pool for what it is. I got into darts as well, but there's something special about table tennis. They have now at downtown Toronto and as well in other major cities. Spin, and they have other table tennis facilities.
Spin closed down in Toronto. It broke my heart.
But another one will come up.
Well, and the concept's really fun, right? And I mean, I think, the grassroots approach to getting younger generations more involved in sports like that and make it fun and entertaining. For anybody who hasn't tried, the concept of spin comes from Vancouver. Really famous actress is actually supporting the brand. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but it's pretty mainstream and it's a really cool concept and something fun to do if you're looking for a good night out.
So as we're finishing off this topic, I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are, because if tennis and table tennis had a baby, it would be called pickleball. Have you got into pickleball yet?
I haven't. I heard about it, but I know nothing about it. I'm not going to lie.
I've watched it. It's really big out in the States. I know it started out in Florida. It was more of a seniors type thing. It's gotten very mainstream. I'm quite excited, David. I feel like I'm going to go hit a new frontier. So essentially like playing table tennis, but on a tennis court. Okay. So it's a different size racket, different size ball. I've been clamoring for it. I feel like this is going to be a new frontier for me. So I'm going to be investigating this whole pickleball phenomenon because I'm telling you, it's here to stay. I think that it's going to take a lot from tennis, but not in a bad way. It'll get people more interested in tennis. People, any form of tennis, whether it's table tennis, pickleball, tennis, I think it's good. It's activity. You're out running,
100%.
Fresh air. It's a good thing. Let's get active out there. Like I love golf. I'm not a great golfer. Love going out with the friends. But there's something different about tennis from an activity standpoint. And for anybody that has not tried the sport before and thought about it, I heavily encourage it. I love that feeling going out on the tennis court, playing an hour, 2 hours, some good rallies, learning how to serve. And like with everything else in life, if you have the means to do it, I had a bit of advantage because my parents sent me to tennis camp. So at a young age, and I learned it. I hated it. Like the idea of going to camp, I just wanted to play. But it taught me properly how to serve, how to play, and then getting one-on-one instruction. Golf is no different, almost any sport, Unless you had the actual education and training in it, if you go to pick it up, you'll only get to a certain point. When you get a trainer and somebody, even just do 1 or 2 classes, you figure out, oh, wow, I had the wrong grip. Oh, wow, I've been doing it this way. I would say it gets an even closer love of the sport. So if you have the means to do it, by all means, I tell you, if you're getting into the sport or you want to refine yourself, go take a couple lessons. I think it'll really pay off.
Yeah, it's an easy sport to learn, but it could take a lifetime to master. Just like sailing, right? Sailing is the same.
So on the last token here, we have 4 topics today because the cars was thrown in at the last minute because we just have to touch upon it. So to be able to deal with watches, cars, playing tennis, pickleball, it requires money. So if somebody that's very good at making money and teaching people making money, it's David Gorski. So David, we're both in the real estate industry. You're involved with it from the realtor side of things, and you're touching upon it at 2 ends, because on the one hand, I was teaching with AREA when they were still teaching the courses for real estate agents, and people going into the real estate industry saying, I want to be a realtor one day. I can make lots of money. This is so great, And really, it's the art of learning sales, because I think truly, it's funny. People think you just become a realtor and the money just falls from the sky. I tell those realtors, it's a really hard reality because you're going to have the hardest job in the world. You need to make something out of nothing. You need to actually go eat what you kill, so to speak. You need to find those people and you need to make transactions happen. So from there, you have realtors as far as commission-wise, learning the art of real estate. And then you got investors as far as making what you call passive money. They have their jobs, they make the income, and instead of going to put it in stocks, bonds, T-bills, they're going and putting it into real estate.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a huge phenomenon right now. And I mean, the way the market's going, more and more people are realizing that real estate is a safe investment, right? So we're seeing a huge transfer of wealth. And it's so mainstream right now. I got my license about 15 years ago, but now everybody realizes the power of building wealth with real estate, right? It's so mainstream. So, I'm very fortunate to be in this industry, and my motto is that the more people I help, the more successful I'm going to get.
You and I had a conversation about this just the other day, and I fell in love with the concept of how you see people coming into real estate as realtors. And it's not just somebody who goes, applies to the college and says, I'm going to take some courses because I've always loved real estate. It's somebody that may have never thought about it, but they have a very good skill. It's called sales.
100%. I mean, sales is one of those skills, life skills, like we're always selling, right? Whether you're trying to convince your mom to let you stay up later past your curfew, you're selling, right? Whether you're trying to convince your wife or your girlfriend to cook something specific for dinner, you're selling her on that idea, right? So, the idea of sales being a negative thing, it's something that we're all faced with on an everyday as an everyday reality. And if you can hone those skills and practice them and make them better, that's going to put you in a more comfortable position in life, right? And real estate, in my opinion, is probably the highest art form when it comes to selling. Just a couple of weeks ago, I went to Yorkville and I walked into one of the big boutique stores in there. And I was carrying a coffee cup, and one of the guys asked me something about coffee, like, could I live without coffee? And it was such a weird question. And at first I was like, why is he asking me? Like, I just, I want to be left alone. I don't want to have this conversation right now. It's early in the morning. Like, I don't know if he's making fun of me. I have my coffee cup, right? But I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to indulge this conversation. So I'm like, let me ask you the same question. And he's like, oh no, I could live without coffee. And he just went into this whole thing. And as I stood there, I turned to him, and it was a really small store, and there was about 4 other sales guys. So 3 of them haven't approached me. And in a loud, intentional voice, I said, are you the top salesperson in the store? And his manager, who was on the other side of the counter, laughed and instantly answered me, yes, he is. Right? So of course, I handed him my business card, and I said to him, have you ever thought about going into real estate? Right? And as he goes to me, as a matter of fact, I have. Right? But sales is such an important art form, right? And a lot of the times it's conversation and connecting with somebody on a much deeper level. That's all you're doing.
And that's one end of real estate, as far as from the sales side of things, of being a realtor and coming into the position and thinking of that as a career. The other spectrum of it is somebody who already has their career, they're professional in whatever sense of what they're doing, and talking to them as far as building real wealth.
Real wealth.
And talking to the young professionals. And one of the things I always like to tell them, when we're meeting and they're buying, let's say, their first home, and explain to them what you make in your job, to me, that can only go so far. That's only going to take you to a certain place in life. If you see what you make as your income as seed money that you're going to plant, because you're putting money in RSPs, you're putting money for retirement, you're planting seeds. Have you ever thought about doing that in real estate? And how many people said, oh, that's not for me. That sounds like a lot of work. It's very intimidating. No, I'm good where I am at. And the one thing I always tell them to think about is when you go to meet other people, other successful people that mentor you, or you think, wow, that's very impressive. I'd like to be where they are. How many of them own multiple properties? There seems to be a very common denominator here, is real estate leads to wealth. True or false?
100% true. And, I think I read a statistic a couple of years ago that Canada has the most multimillionaires per capita. And I would say the majority of multimillionaires in our country is created through real estate, right? And it's a very simple formula. You take your business income, which is money that you physically earn, and you invest in real estate and live off passive income. And if you can accomplish this, then you have an infinite income source. And ultimately, you can stop working, right? And you can live off of passive income, and then you're free to do whatever you want.
I have clients that in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're already on property number 3, 4, 5. I tell them, you are so far ahead of the game. You are literally coming into the top 1% of the population. There are people your age that are still scoundering by, hoping to buy their first property, and here you are already on multiples. Like, they're literally laughing, David, because by the time they're going to hit 50, they're going to be in the dozens.
Yep. There's 8 profit centers when you buy an investment property.
8
profit centers, right? So you're making money from 8 different avenues, right? And it's all passive income.
Really, because I could only think of 2 as far as the appreciation of the property and the money that you're earning through income.
Okay. So let me take you through all of them.
Okay.
Now, this is off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but we'll see if I can get through all 8 incomes. So the first is this idea that if you buy the property for the right price, then by the time the closing date comes, you've already made money. Okay. Mortgage paid out. So you have your tenants paying down your mortgage. Then you have cash flow, right? Then you have something called appreciation. So as the market moves up, the property moves up. Then you have forced appreciation, meaning that if you spend money on improving the property, you can get higher rents or better tenants, so you can force the appreciation of the property. Then reinvesting. So as the tenants pay down your mortgage, you can take equity out and you can buy other property as well. How many is that?
6.
Did you count? 6. Okay. So we're missing 2 more profit centers.
The general income you're making, I would say month to month. Would that count as well?
Well, that's cash flow, right?
Okay.
The other income center is taxes. So you have depreciation when you buy property, so you have certain tax advantage. And we're missing 1 more income center, but I mean, it gives you an idea of
write-offs?
Well, that would be with taxes.
Okay.
But it gives you an idea of how powerful investing in real estate really is, right? With 8 profit centers, and this is all passive income, right? If you look at the property analysis of buying like a duplex in Barrie, and you factor in all 8 profit centers, like we're seeing something like 60% return your cash investment in year 1.
I tell people often, because some people are holding back saying, you know what, I'm going to wait another 6 months, a year, 2 years, maybe properties will go down in value, maybe my mortgage will be a little cheaper. I told them, you've lost now 2 years of opportunity to grow yourself. You set yourself back 2 years, because even if you got those numbers that you thought you're going to hit, you could have been building equity all this time. You could have been making income all this time. The best time to get in is now. And once you get it, if it's a long-term play, which it should be, don't even look at the value anymore. It doesn't matter. It'll all work itself out. And no matter what, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, if you look at the chart of economics, you will be ahead in the long term regardless.
Yeah, and time is your biggest leverage. Time is your biggest leverage. So the earlier you get in, the better position you're going to be over time.
And that's one of the things I tell the millennials these days and the influencers, or what they think are the influencers, is you're doing it all wrong. You're starting backwards. You don't go buy the Rollies and the cars first. Go buy the real estate. Go make the real income. Build up the worth. Those other things will come from there. Because buying the net effects at the end of the day, those are not going to be generating you income. Maybe they've gone up, sure, but it's not going to be the way the real estate. Like you're saying, if you go and put the money towards 9/11 versus putting a brand new townhouse, let's say in Oakville or somewhere, the money's better spent in the real estate.
Yeah, I'm a perfect example, and I talk about it openly because I want people not to make the same mistakes I made, right? Like, if I didn't buy my 9/11, if I bought a townhouse, I probably would have been $1 million ahead. If I bought the Tesla shares instead of buying my Tesla, I would have been worth multiple millions of dollars, probably never have to buy a Tesla ever again in my life and pay for it with my own resources, right? So, I don't want people making the same mistakes I make. But at the end of the day, you got to be authentic and you got to do what's right for you. But sometimes making those tough decisions financially will pay dividends in the years to come.
I talked about in tennis, wrapping this up, and talking about how in tennis you need to work with a professional when you're first learning off. I think making money is no different. Unless you've gone to business school yourself, you've taken all the courses, and you're an expert in everything, I tell people, look, you may be very good. You may have taken some courses perhaps, maybe you have some experience, but putting that team of professionals together is so key. So you want to get better at golf or tennis? Hire a pro. You want to get better at making money? Hire a pro. Get the realtor. the lawyer, the accountant, the financial planner, and listen to everybody. Find the pro that works for you. Start making a budget. For people, when they go and look at the money they spend, they're saying, I can't afford to do this. They look at where the money's leaking out. I spent this much on Starbucks coffees, and I spent this much on vacations, and I spent this much on nice clothes. If I had taken that over 5 years, there's a house right there. That can be quite mind-boggling for people.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, but I think you have to have a mentor, and I think you have to surround yourself with people you look up to, and don't take advice from somebody who is not where you want to be at the level that you want to be, right? So, if you want to get to a higher level, don't take advice from a person that's 10 levels below you, because there's no way that person can give you the right advice to get you up to the higher level. So surround yourself with great people, have a great team of people you look up to, and find yourself a mentor that's at the level you want to get to, and take them out for lunch, take them out for coffee, build a relationship. And it's no different if you're selecting a brokerage. It's no different if you're getting a real estate license. It's no different if you're just beginning to think about investing. It's no different if you want to become a watch collector. Talk to a person who's done it. Talk to a person who's been there, and listen to what they have to say.
And that's where I'm very impressed as far as your multifaceted person. For realtors that need mentorship, want to be part of a great team when they join Sutton Summit, as far as working together there, and then the work you're doing at INAGENT as far as encouraging realtors to be part of real estate investing. Yes. You're breaking new frontiers there.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I co-founded a company called INAGENT, and we help realtors do more deals by helping them work with investors. And we're the first company in North America. I was speaking to the National Association of Realtors the other week, and I was speaking to our education department. We're like, it's mind-boggling. We're the first in the industry to come up with a training program that actually helps realtors work with this vertical. We find that about 25% of the realtors that take the training become investors themselves, which is something that's very important in the industry right now. I'll share a quick story. I don't know if we have time for about a 5-minute story.
For you, yes.
So about 4 years ago, I had one of my veteran realtors walk into my office. He was 86 years old at the time. And I put my broker owner hat, and he told me about a new listing that he was getting. So of course I shifted my seat, and I got, very excited. That's great. Congratulations on your listing. And he just kind of looked like, the wind was completely blown out of him. And I said, "What's wrong?" He had this puzzled look on his face, and he said, "No, David, you don't understand. I don't want to be trading in real estate. I'm taking this listing because I have to. I don't have any money in my bank account. I'm broke."
At 86.
"I need to take this listing." And, as a broker owner, that hit me like a ton of bricks, right? And from that point forward, I promised myself that, I'm going to help my realtors win. I'm going to help teach them that, time is the biggest leverage that they have, and that they need to get into the game as well. We help our clients win every single day, right? We need to start doing the same for us. We need to start winning as well. We need to start thinking, what our exit strategy is going to be when we want to stop selling real estate. We need to start thinking about, are you going to sell real estate at the age of 50? Are you going to sell real estate at the age of 60? Are you going to sell real estate at the age of 70? And are you going to have the power to say no? Is this going to be something that's forced upon you, or are you going to have the power to take control of your life? Right? And it starts from a very early age. So I think as a broker owner, when the opportunity presented itself to get involved with INAGENT on that scale, I jumped right into it. Being an investor myself and seeing the power of how real estate can help you build your wealth. As a realtor, we never know where the next lead is going to come from, right? But Jonathan, if I said to you, "Hey, I have this opportunity. It's on a golden platter. If you pull the trigger on this property, this is what's going to happen," would you say no?
I'd listen.
You'd listen, right?
Always.
So we found that the INAGENT training that we do is a different form of prospecting. It's being able to have conversations with anybody around you, right? Do you want to retire early? Do you want to quit your 9 to 5? Do you want to put your kids through college? Do you want to go on more vacations, right? And who in the right mind is going to say no to that? So as a realtor that is struggling and you don't know where your next lead is coming from, This is a whole different way of thinking about your business.
And that's where, for people as a connection point, doesn't always begin with how can I make you money. But let's say, for example, somebody watching this episode today, if they like watches, they're curious about how that works, about tennis, about cars, buying a 911, a Tesla, contact David. You're going to have his contact information. It's going to be in the bio. But if you're a realtor, if you're just anybody, any professional, and you're saying, hey, I want to be successful, I want to learn how to make money off real estate, give David a call. He'll pick up the phone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the demand for this designation is going to be market driven. So I think as more and more people realize the power of building wealth through real estate, I think they're going to start asking their agent, hey, are you in? Do you have your in-agent designation? Because they know that the agents that are going to have their in-agent designation are going to be that much better equipped to help find them that right investment property.
As we're summing up today, David, as we're going into the year 2023, besides the fact that you and I are going to be pickleball champions in the future,
I love it.
Where do you see 2023 headed in general? What's the outlook for you in general as far as real estate, the economy, luxury goods? Where are you seeing things going?
Well, I think immigration is going to play the biggest role in that viewpoint. And, the official numbers are like 420,000 immigrants coming in 2023.
This is in Canada?
In Canada, yeah. Yes. I think that number is going to be much higher. And I think, the rental market is going to go off the charts. I think we're going to see banks starting to ease interest rates a little bit in 2023. And I think it's going to be a good year for real estate. I think, any realtor or any person asking me how I view the market right now, I think we're in a market of opportunities. I think we've seen, a pullback of about 25% in some markets. And I think it's a great time to buy. Tomorrow is going to be another interest rate announcement by the Bank of Canada. I think there's going to be an increase as well. The industry is predicting a 50 basis or 75 basis point increase. And I think as, that increase takes effect on the market, I think we're going to see even more opportunities. So I think for the next 3 months, I think it's going to be an exciting time out there.
I agree with you 1,000%. I tell people all the time, I've been through it through many, many years. I remember there was a point in the beginning of 08, end of 07, where there was literally a halt. We've never seen that halt, and knock on wood, we won't. But I tell people, deals are still happening. No matter what you hear in the media, don't jump up and down and think that, the sky is falling. The market is still going. Maybe it's down if it's down 20%, 25%, 30%, but it's not down 100%, which means those properties that would have had multiple offers, bidding wars, you can now put conditions into. You may actually get a better price. Maybe you're going to even pay 10% less, 15%. The market's 20+%. Guess what? Take it when you can get it, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. But it's nice to buy in that market when you're not buying under pressure. But there's that innate gambler within all of us saying, if I wait a little longer, I'm going to get a better deal. I'm going to get a better deal. But we've seen it time and time again, right, David? All of a sudden, the way the faucet closes, the faucet get turned on in a moment. People are saying, wait a minute, there's a shortage out there. Interest rates are stable. I need to buy right now. And then we're right back into it. And they're saying, I should have bought 2 months ago.
If COVID has taught us anything, is that the whole world believes in Canadian real estate in a way I can't even explain to you guys. What we've seen happen to real estate through COVID. Nobody knew, or nobody could have predicted, what's going to happen with property values and number of transactions. And through one of the biggest pandemics that the world has seen, that Canadian real estate would be as active as it was, right?
Absolutely.
But it was. And I think, when you look at the world scale of what's happening, where Canada's position in terms of, giving back, in terms of its respect in the world, in terms of its stability in the economic and banking sector, every single country in the world is probably flowing money into Canada right now, given the economic conditions that we're seeing in the world. And that's not going to change. That's only going to get amplified. And I think we're going to see more and more investment happening. Even look at the foreign buyer tax. It's at 20%, and people are still buying. What does that tell you? 20%, and people are still putting money into Canadian real estate. Like, if you really think about that from an objective point of view, if you're a foreigner and you have to pay a 20% tax to invest in Canada,
that's heavy.
and you're willing to do it,
Yeah.
what does that tell you about our real estate prices?
We must be pretty good. I mean, I tell people all the time, if you want to study major markets, look at the prices in Toronto in the Canadian dollar, then go look in New York City, go look in LA, go look in London, England. We're doing pretty
Mexico. Go look at Mexican real estate prices, right? And you're going to think a real estate is cheap compared to some of those places, right? And I'm not here to say whether it is cheap or not, but I think there's tons of opportunities still up there if you have the right team and if you know what you're doing.
David Gorski, thank you today for joining us. Keeping styling and profiling all the time, making real estate look good, giving out good information and helping others. You're bringing goodness into the world, so we appreciate that and appreciate your time today.
So much fun having this conversation. I never know where the time goes when I do these podcasts, but it was great. Thank you for having me on, and I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation today.
And for people that were interested in what we're talking about, and you talk a lot about real estate on your podcast, David and David on Real Estate with my partner David Korman, they can find out on the channels as well. And every week, guys bring on either different guests or you talk between yourselves and talk about what's going on in the real estate market. Great information. Heavily tell people subscribe, watch it. You guys are doing good.
Yeah, very different from this podcast, but it's great to do those with David Korman as well. We're recording episode 62 this week.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Does it ever?
And as we sign off, we do the flexing.
I don't know if I can keep up with you.
We'll try. And we say, keep living the chosen life.
Keep living the chosen life.